remember this cute top from last week, go click the link if you want to sew the top from last week. It's really cute. I'm really pleased with it, and we're going to make the matching pants today. So we're pulling back out the same pattern. It is McCalls 7873, and we're using the same fabrics. That is the houndstooth check. However, I'm only doing houndstooth check in the front. The back of the pant is going to be the plain black ponte, and we have more of that fun rib knit stripe that's going to be our contrast piece down the side. The other thing that you'll need is elastic for your waistband and your cuff. Let me show you really quickly the alterations I made to the pants, and then we'll get cutting out. Here are the alterations that I've made to the pants. For me, it's always the back. I need a little more room in the back. The fronts are often too deep through the crotch, and the backs are usually not deep enough. So on the length and shorten line, I have split it. Did not change on this outer edge where it's getting sewn together. So this is the same, but I've hinged it open so that I can add just over an inch in this back. So I have a deeper back crotch. And then out here, I've added to the inner thigh. And again, this just gives me more rear end room. So you can see this is a deeper scoop for a bigger rear end. So that's what that is, and then I just ease that back in. So this gives a little inner thigh, extra inner thigh room also. So this is the back alteration. Length is fine for me. I'm not worried about length, so length is good. And then on the front, the only alteration I made is I just scooped it out a tiny bit here. Just gave myself a little extra on the inner thigh in the crotch. I can always take that back out if I try it on and I just see I don't really need it, but I kind of think I'm going to. So I went ahead and just added that. I don't need any in the front length. As a matter of fact, it may be a little bit long, and I may be reducing this a little bit in the front once I do my try on. So that's it. I just need to finish truing this up, and I'm ready to cut out. Laying out my front pant on the houndstooth, and one nice thing is I can actually see right through this paper to help me line up my grain line using the houndstooth check. So I can adjust my grain line really easily to get a nice straight of grain. So I'm going to pin this on. You can see I have lots left over, sort of a wide side panel piece of the houndstooth. All right, here's my pant back laid out, and I need 4 pockets, so I traced my pocket pattern. There's 2 here and 2 here, and I'll have my 4 pocket pieces. So that's it for the main pieces. Here's the contrast piece. It's almost exactly the same size as my pattern piece. It's just a tiny bit wider, and it's almost exactly the same length too. Like we're pretty fortunate here. This is gonna just fit. So all I'm really going to do is transfer my markings for the pocket, and I want to make sure the pocket, I want this more on the front than the back. The back's going to be pretty much just the black with the seam. So I'm going to transfer my pocket markings, and I'm ready to sew. So this is meant for a moderate stretch, so not super stretchy knit. And the way they have you in the pattern sew this together is just with a double straight stitch. So you straight stitch it, and then you go back beside it and you do another straight stitch. You can sew it that way. If you have an overlock machine like I do, you can serge it together. Now, because you have pants and you have pockets, there's a part where you'll have to clip and open up, and there's some little funky things in that. So what I have decided to do to make this the easiest way to sew it together is I'm going to just serge my seam edges before I construct anything. So all of my outer edges, not the hemline and not of the waist and not the hemline of the cuff at the bottom, but all the side pieces and the pocket pieces, all of that, I'm going to go ahead and just finish off those seam allowances first, and then I'm just going to straight stitch it together on my sewing machine. You can also sew this together with a micro zigzag, not the zigzag you would use for like a satin stitch, but just a really tiny little open zigzag that'll give you a little bit of stretch if you feel like you need it. Because I'm working with such stable knit, I'm not a bit concerned about that, so I'm just going to stitch it together. So I'm going to do my seam finishing really quickly, and then we're going to get going on construction. So let's look at our directions. The first thing we're going to do is make a right and a left leg by matching the front panel and the back panel at the inseam. So we're going to like this. We're going to match them right sides together, and because I have my front and back in two different fabrics, it makes it really easy to see. So we're going to match these together, and we're going to sew them on the inseam for both of them. So let's do that real quick. So when I finished off the seam allowance on the side seam and inseam of these pieces, I did not do the crotch. Now you could, on this inseam, just have serged these two together. That would totally be fine. But because I'm not going to do that on the side seam for the pocket and all the other things, I'm just going to do the same stitching throughout, except the crotch. I will serge this crotch pieces together because it's more comfortable and gives you a smoother seam and just looks nicer. So now that we've done that, we're ready to actually put them together at the crotch, which is step 2. So we're just going to now match front to front, center front to center front, center back to center back, and we're going to sew that U straight through. Here is how that seam is going to look at the crotch seam, and because again my front and my back are different, it makes it very easy to see. So here's my center front all the way down. Here is right in the center where the two meet, and here is the back. So I'm going to just sew this U straight through on the 5/8, and then I'm going to come back and serge next to it, and I am going to take off some of this excess because it makes for a smoother shape against the body, and it will lay nicer and it looks nicer. All right, so it's hard to see, this fabric really kind of eats the seam, but that's my seam off of the sewing machine, and now we're going to just serge it, finish it off, and you can see we're getting rid of a little excess. I could have just done this all on the serger if I wanted to, and that's how it looks, and it gives it a nice finished edge. We're going to use our markings and notches and line up our pockets. So we're going to have one on each side of the front, and we're going to stitch it right along here, stopping 5/8 inch above and below. Actually, up here you could sew all the way up because this is going to get caught down into the waistband when we turn the waistband over, but we're going to just start right at the 5/8, right below the 5/8 inch all the way down, and stop like right about here to attach it to both fronts. And we're going to do the same thing to the contrast. It's going to look like this for both of them. The thing that's confusing is they kind of show it open instead of flat when you start to sew it, but they do show that you stop a little bit early, so use your notches. The circles are to help us know when we line it up and sew everything up to make the opening, which is coming up in just a minute. See the circles? The circles let us know where to leave it open. That's where your hand goes in. So the circles are where we sew up to finish it. Okay, so we're going to attach pockets, and then we're going to sew the pieces together. So now that we have a pocket sewn to our front and a pocket sewn to our contrast, we're going to match them up and sew this seam together. So I've already started down here at the hem, and I'm just starting to pin up. Everything should just line up just right so that we can sew it together. And you're going to have one little stitch up here at the top. So when they're laid on top of each other, pocket is out. Let me turn it to this side because it's just easier to see. You can see where I stopped stitching. You'll kind of start in that same spot and stitch up, and then down here you'll start right where you stopped on the pocket, stitch down, and then you'll come back and go around the pocket. If you're looking at the directions, they kind of show it all in one, but you're going to stitch this little section and then come below and stitch down, and then you'll stitch around. Now you can top stitch if you want to, sort of like an understitch where you're stitching on the inside of the pocket itself, so it won't show on the outside. So you're going to kind of stitch along the edge of this pocket. It holds it flat. It helps keep it from pulling through, and that's not a bad idea to go ahead and just do a little stitching right along here on both of these. Do it 5/8 of an inch from this edge. So start here, do a little edge stitch right along here, stop before the 5/8 inch here, and that's just going to make it stay flat. You can even do it even in a little bit smaller, just like a little shorter section in the middle if you want to. Keeps the pocket from pulling through and makes it flatter. So this is how the inside edge stitch will look. Here's my outside front, here's my pocket inside, and you can see here's the edge of my fabric and the needle. So I'm stitching really close to that edge, but it's on the inside of the pocket. So can you see it sort of disappears, but it's going to make that pocket lay nice and flat on the inside. And you can do that on both sides. So I can come over here and do the same thing over here. You're stitching on the pocket side, not the garment side. And seam allowance and everything is back towards the pocket. do this before you sew up that side seam. I'm below the pocket on the side seam, so here you can see my pocket, and I've actually kind of pulled the pieces out a little bit, and I've sunk my needle right where I stopped stitching when I sewed the pocket to the front. So I've got them sandwiched together. I've got my contrast piece and my front lined up right below the pocket where I stopped stitching, and that's where I'm going to start putting my side seam together. I'm going to take a couple stitches, back stitch those few, and then we're just going to stitch on down all the way down the leg, and then we'll come back and finish our little pocket flap up here. Here's our pocket. I've got to give it a little haircut, but look at that. Look at how nice that looks. Nice pocket. There's our contrast piece. So once you've done that for both sides, you're ready to now sew the contrast to the back. Pretty simple, and our pants are almost done. Then we're down for elastic. So next is this. We're going to sew contrast to back all the way down. All right, I have both pockets in. I've already sewn the contrast to the back on one side, so here you can see my contrast. Here you can see the back, and they're just the same length, and you're just making a seam all the way down. Here's the next one, getting ready to do it, and then I will have pants. We're ready for elastic. Okay, friends, I know you can't tell, but it's dark out. I started this project in the dark, and I'm normally a morning. Okay, friends, I'm gonna stop today. At this point, I'm almost done, but it's late and it's dark out, and I have an early morning tomorrow, so I'm gonna finish up after tomorrow's events, and I'll show you how they look. So I'm gonna look different for the end of this video, but we're gonna get those pants done, and you can see how cute they are. See you tomorrow. I'm back. It's a new day. You can see there's light outside the window. So I'm going to now finally put in the elastic. Let me just show you where we're at with our pants. Here's the front, here's the back, here's the pocket. Isn't that cute? Really disappears inside there. So I have not yet serged the top where my waist is going to go, or the bottom where the hem is going to go. So I'm just going to serge around both of those first, and then I'm going to turn down the waist to make the casing for the elastic. So I'm going to do that first. I want to put my elastic casing in and try them on and see how I like the length, if I want to leave them without the elastic in the bottom. I really want the elasticized bottom, but I'm going to try them on anyway, and give myself, give a look really quick on that. So let me serge the top of this, and then I'll show you how we're going to fold down to make the casing, and it's going to catch the pocket in that casing. In the directions it shows folding down first to like finish that edge, and then folding again. If you're doing the overlock, there's no reason to do that double fold. So I'm going to serge around it and just fold down one time for the casing and not worry about having that double fold. It also makes the waist a little, it makes it, that seam thicker. It doesn't gather up quite as nicely. You can get a ripple depending on how heavy your fabric is. It may not happen if you have a really lightweight fabric, but I won't have to worry about it because I'm not going to have a double layer fabric there. Let me serge. So I'm folding down for the waistline casing, and I remembered I have not yet put in my tag. So normally you put the tag back here in the center back, but I don't like tags in the back. I've had back surgery and I have a scar back there, and tags super annoying. So I always put them in the waistband somewhere like on the side seam. So I'm going to go ahead and sew in my tag first, and then we're just folding down our casing. You can see I've already serged the edge, and up here where the pocket is, now this is, you're looking at this upside down. Here's the top of the waist. Here's the pocket. So you can see how the pocket goes up into the waistline and will get caught. So it's nice and tight. It'll be nice and firm in there. You won't have a saggy pocket because it's caught in this seam. If you have done like I have, you will have a bulky seam right here. This is really thick, because I have got my outer fabric, my pocket, and the contrast fabric all together right here on this seam, and then it's folded back on itself. So there's a lot going on right here. Otherwise, not too bad. This is the thickest part on each side of the front, so just be aware of that. When you go to sew your casing, I always start in the center back to leave my hole, so that the hole's back here, or on this one of the side seams. Don't ever do it in the very front of the waist. It's just more noticeable. You want to put it where it's going to be less noticeable. I have the waistband turned down. Here's my opening to get the elastic in. in the center back. I've got my tag on. So I've measured my elastic. It'll be different for everyone. I usually will go 2 inches smaller than my actual waist measurement, or just stretch the elastic around your waist till it feels comfortable and give yourself a little bit of extra room for overlap. I'm ready to fish it through and finish off the elastic. This is your first elastic waistband. A few things to think about. You put a safety pin on the end. It makes it easier to fish it through. I always pin down the excess on the inside so that you don't pull the tail in. You don't want the whole elastic to go through. You want to have a tail coming out each end in the where your casing is, through that hole. So those are a couple things to think about when you're doing this. I've done lots of waistbands, but you may be the first waistband you've done with me if you haven't seen one of the other videos. When you get to the pocket and areas like that, you've got a seam that your elastic might get caught behind, so you might have to kind of poke a couple times to find the hole to get through. Mine's really thick because of the fabrics that I've chosen. So, and I should have gone with an even bigger safety pin so that I don't. It makes it easier to find. There, I'm through the hole of that big, heavy seam. And on one side, you'll be coming up behind the seam. On the other side, you'll be coming up with the seam, so it's easier going one direction than the other. So you'll find it, one side will go easier. All right, I'm gonna keep fishing and we'll sew this together and try it on. I'm gonna show you in the mirror real quick so you can kind of see. Here's the pant leg. Oop. So you can see, so it actually looks pretty cute, just as pants. Now I haven't pressed this or anything yet, but it's pretty cute. You could wear it just like a pant, really. But I'm gonna go ahead and put the elastic in. It's really the perfect length. I'm very pleased. All right, I'm gonna go finish these real quick. Okay, I've had the try on. I'm going to go ahead and put the elastic in the hem. It's done exactly the same as the waist. I've got to sew up the back of the waist where I fish the elastic through, and I'll just show you. You can see there's a hole right there, so we just pull that flat and sew across it and finish off that elastic. So I'm going to finish all the elastic, and I'll try on the whole outfit, the shirt and the pants together, and show you in just a minute.